So welcome to Knockout Sessions. I'm Julio. This is Milton. We had a lot of good fights yesterday, a lot of questions answered. The top fight yesterday was Ryan Garcia versus Oscar Duarte. What did you think about Ryan?
So with Ryan, I mean, it was his first fight back after his loss to Tank Davis. But going right into the first couple rounds, he for the most part, I mean, I didn't see a lot of improvement. It looked like he was still using his long jab, and
Gauge the range.
yeah, and then he wasn't really. You would think that because he made the switch with the trainer with Derrick James, and based on the amount of great boxers that Derrick James has, that you would see some type of improvement, at least in his defense. I mean, he's already gone through 3 different trainers at this point, and he went from such a defensive trainer, in my opinion, with Eddie Reynoso, and then supposedly he was supposed to fix his offense with Joe Goosen, and then comes back, to Derrick James after that loss, because obviously there was a lot of mistakes done in the Tank fight with his defense that at least Derrick James would have somehow approached that or somehow tried to fix it.
Polish up his game.
Yeah, there's literally there was no polishing. If anything, we saw new things that weren't good.
Oh, the Philly show. That was probably one of the worst Philly shows I've ever seen.
Yeah.
He kind of kept ducking on it. He improved his footwork. I'll give him that. And the head movement was a little bit more adequate than what he's used to.
Yeah, and then if you saw the first couple rounds when Duarte started throwing his left hook, you saw Ryan quickly start picking up his right hand,
right?
Which is kind of the 2 times that he got dropped from Luke Campbell and with Tank. He kept getting dropped from the right side.
Yeah.
So we saw the hand go up, but I mean, besides that, I mean, I don't know what was up with that, quote unquote shoulder roll Philly shell. But he said it was supposedly to help slow down the momentum on Duarte. But I mean, if it was any other boxer who had a little more pop, or any other boxer that maybe was able to capitalize on that opportunity,
right,
he would have probably been knocked out, because he kept leaning forward, and even though he tried to do this with the shoulder roll, technically his face was wide open, and we did see Duarte hit him with like a couple left hooks straight in the face.
Yeah, I think it was he was protecting his body. Well, what was the way he went out with Tank? That nasty body blow. He knows that he's susceptible to a lot of body blows. So,
but I mean, he said it because they asked him about it. Hey, was that Philly roll technically due because you felt like you were hurt? He said no. So
poker face?
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe, but I mean, that's the worst poker face I've ever seen. If you want to argue that.
And going into with Duarte, looked really good. A solid chin. The whole fight kept going in front. He was pressing the action. He was making Ryan fight off his back foot. But in the end, he got clipped. Good little combo. Barely missed a count. Do you think it was a right call?
Yeah, I mean, any boxer that is gonna want to fight, you're not gonna wait until the last second. I mean, most boxers get up on the 8th.
Yeah.
What's an extra 2 seconds we're gonna do for him? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. In my opinion, he used that as an excuse, saying that he got up at the last second. And as far as I know, I haven't heard him complain about that. They didn't give him enough time for him to get up.
Yeah.
But in my personal opinion, that was a man who just quit. It's kind of the same concept if you want to argue what happened with Ryan. Ryan, saying like if he wanted to get up, he would have gone up, and he didn't. Right. He essentially just let the count go, and they stopped the fight. So based on his body language, you could clearly see Duarte was done. And you like you said, you have to give him props. I mean, if it was most other boxers, that I don't think I've ever seen any other boxer that Ryan's fought up to this point that took that much punishment. Like Duarte definitely showed that he had a chin. I mean, there was a lot of left hooks, right hooks, straights, whatever Ryan was throwing at him, that he ate them. And I think that's probably why Ryan started doing his little dance, because he saw that if he stayed right there trying to exchange with Duarte was just eating everything up.
Right.
Like he was not showing any signs that he was going down or signs that he was really hurt. Like he just kept pressing forward. So, I mean, kudos to Ryan. I mean, a lot of people are probably going to give him crap for the fact that he started running around the ring. But I mean, due to the fact that he started running around, it opened up Duarte to get him with that left hook on the temple.
Right, because Duarte went into the hunting mode. When you get into hunting mode, you get frustrated because you have a set fighter trying to move around a lot. Move right into Brand's positions, which opened up for that combo, that nasty combo. I think it was a good stoppage. The ref was right in Duarte's face too.
Yeah.
So for those people that are saying that it was an early stoppage, he was in his face, right there, clear as day, giving him the 10 count. And when Duarte heard 9, got up, but he was still wobbly.
And actually, he didn't even get up on the 9. He got up on 10. On 10, he literally he shot up and stood up on the 10th round. But again, I mean, anybody that wants to keep fighting, they're not going to try to get up on the 10th. They're going to try to get up on 7, 8. You'll take an 8 count, get up, shake it off, and then go back. He was clearly just ready to quit at that point, in my opinion.
Yeah. So that being said, Ryan won WBA championship.
Yeah, I think he got probably that mandatory status for the WBA belt, which I believe that's the one that Rolly got gifted.
I see that.
I mean, with Duarte, I mean, he obviously had power, and I think that's the reason why, you saw Ryan overall just try to hang in there. And I give Ryan a little bit of props because he took some decently good shots from him, but I think movement-wise, I think Rolly has a little bit of more movement. He's super awkward.
Slicker boxer.
Yeah, like I don't even call him slicker. I think he's just super awkward. Like his fighting style is awkward, and I think that's what makes Rolly dangerous. The fact that he's so awkward. He doesn't really have a straightforward type of fighting style. He's just gonna try to hit you no matter what. And technically, Rolly still has power. So I see that Rolly's gonna try to get into Ryan's face and make the fight super ugly. And I mean, unless Ryan can keep him at bay, I mean, Rolly kind of does the same thing. If you remember him when he was fighting Tank, he kind of did the same thing to Tank. But I mean, they're both about the same height. They both have that length. So I think the fact that Rolly's going to try to get in and make it sloppy makes it a little dangerous for Ryan. Because if you saw during this Duarte fight, when Ryan was doing the whole, Philly shell or whatever you want to call it in the middle of the ring, he did stand his ground, but like he wasn't really finding a way, to break Duarte away or, find ways to sneak in punches. So it really makes it ugly, and he's just in the clinch with Ryan. If Rolly just starts throwing bombs, I mean, you gotta kind of question if Ryan's going to be able to withstand any of that power. But at the end of the day, I mean, Ryan has all the speed. If Ryan can keep his distance and catch Rolly kind of the way Tank caught Rolly coming in, Ryan has the power to essentially drop Rolly. So Ryan's a little more overall better boxer, so I would still favor Ryan, but I don't think it's going to be a pretty fight.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think and both men need to kind of make a statement. This division's looking fun. You got Teofimo, you got Devin Haney coming up. You got you still have Ramirez. You still have you got Garcia and Rolly making their statements coming up soon. We got to find out who's the king of the hill.
Hey, my personal opinion, you already know I got Teofimo. You already know I'm a Teofimo fan. I met him in person. We're buddies now, so I like Teofimo. But technically right now Regis Prograis, just based on the fact that he's been there so long, and technically this is
the veteran of the division.
Yeah, and he's been stubborn because he wanted to get that belt again ever since he lost it to Josh Taylor. So we technically have a good idea of who's going to start being the top guy, since we have Haney coming up to fight Regis Prograis. But the fact that we have Haney and Regis Prograis actually, fighting for that number 1 spot right now, because you can argue Prograis right now is number 1. I would personally put Teofimo as number 2 until further notice, but Haney's definitely number 3.
So Regis Prograis is number 1?
In the 140 division, yes. He's been there the longest. Wow. He's technically fought everyone up because technically Teofimo, Haney, Ryan, even Rolly, these were all 135 pounders. All these guys are coming up.
Yeah.
So who's been there the longest? Prograis. Prograis fought all the older 140s that are either already lost or moved up. So Prograis for sure is the more established at 140. But based on what Teofimo did to Josh Taylor, Teofimo is easily number 2. And I know you say style makes fights, blah, 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 blah. But technically speaking, Josh Taylor beat Prograis, Teofimo beat Josh Taylor, so...
We're not doing that kind of
Yes, we are.
We're not doing that kind of
Yes, we are. So that's easily number 2.
No, we're
Haney's
not.
barely making his debut at 140, so... And the fact that Haney's fighting Prograis, I mean, we're going to get a solid number 1. But definitely, I think that Teofimo needs to fight the winner of Prograis.
Yeah, I would say that'd be the top fight to make after that. I would say Devin Haney's the favorite. He's just going to bully Regis Prograis. Maybe not, with power, but with skill, being the bigger man.
Yeah, and I think that Haney definitely learned a lot fighting Loma. Loma's a super tricky, boxer. Best footwork out there, if anyone
For sure.
would. There's no one out there that would disagree that Loma has the best footwork. So I know you think Loma won. A lot of people out there think that Loma won. But it doesn't matter. Haney got the win. And no matter what, Haney went 12 rounds with Loma, and it was a super close competitive fight.
Right.
So I think with all the experience that he got with Loma, in my opinion, Prograis is a very awkward boxer, kind of similar to Rolly, but Prograis has a lot of power. So technically, since Haney's moving up, Prograis should be the bigger guy, even though Haney's pretty big for his weight class.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see if Haney can even handle Prograis' power at this point.
Yeah, the thing with Prograis, I mean, like you said, he was probably the most experienced in the division, but his ceiling isn't the highest.
No.
I mean, compared to the other 135ers that came up.
Especially if all the backlash he got from his last fight of how boring it was. He couldn't get the dude out. He looked super awkward. And that's technically why Prograis is saying that's the reason why Haney chose him, because Prograis was considered the number 1, but then you're coming off of one of your worst performances. I mean, Haney's technically just going in there trying to capitalize on that.
Smart on Haney, but the thing is that we're not going to expect 5 much out of that fight.
Yeah.
Haney and Prograis is just going to be more of a chess match.
Yeah, which that's what we expected of Loma and Haney, and ended up being a really good fight. So
you never know, right?
Yeah, we'll see.
There's questions to Haney's power. So, and Haney himself has acknowledged that.
Yeah, but see, one of the things that Prograis kind of has going for him is that Haney's constantly trying to prove that he has power. Yeah. So maybe he's gonna go out there throwing bombs that he doesn't have. So maybe Prograis can catch him, and that might be Haney's downfall, that he wants to be known for power punching, when in reality he's not. Everybody knows that he's just a great boxer. Yeah,
a lot of good fights coming in the lightweight division. Needed it for a long time.
Yeah,
they needed a big change, makeover on that fight. A lot of these 135ers that are moving up going to make that division a lot more special. So then we move on to UFC Austin.
Yeah, which in your opinion, you said it was going to answer a lot of questions because a lot of people were coming off of, losses. So what did you think of the whole overall night?
We'll start with the Sean Brady versus Kelvin Gastelum fight. That one, me personally, I was excited for. I'm a big believer in Sean Brady. He's coming off a loss to Beneil Dariush to Belal Muhammad, actually.
Which is the reason why I heard a lot of people were talking crap, saying that Sean Brady can't wrestle, can't strike. He was supposed to lose to, Gastelum. So I guess you were right on this one. Because you were wrong in the last one, because I had Belal Muhammad winning and you had Sean Brady, but...
it happened. Here's the thing about Sean Brady and Kelvin Gastelum. Both men came into this fight with a lot of questions that needed to be answered. In Sean Brady's case, he's been inactive. He hasn't fought in about a year and a half prior to this fight against Belal Muhammad. His striking was also in question, even though he trains in Philly. I believe he's good friends with Boots Ennis. Mm-hmm.
Which it didn't show. Because Boots Ennis is technically one of the greatest boxers right now. Even though he hasn't been able to prove it.
Yeah, Sean Brady's more known for his wrestling. He's a gorilla. Mm-hmm. That's what he is. He's just gonna pound you on the floor and get you in a good submission hold. That Kimura lock that he locked in on Kelvin Gastelum to win the fight, nasty. Mm-hmm. But heading to that fight, we thought we would see an improvement in Sean's striking, but really Sean played the smart game. He went for the takedowns, but he was just dominant in that. And I can't really get mad at that. I mean, that's his bread and butter. Why try to, shy away from what got you to the dance? I would have liked to see a little more striking than Sean Brady, but with Kelvin Gastelum's case, he looked good at welterweight, physically. The weight has been his biggest Achilles his entire career. He's a middleweight, most of his career the last couple of years. He used to be a welterweight a couple of years ago, but this is his debut at welterweight since then. Looked good physically. I mean, his striking showed that it was still better than Sean's. That's why Sean was playing the smarter game. But I think ultimately the better man won. Younger, he's up and coming. Called out Ian Gary. That's an interesting fight because Ian Gary's his bread and butter is striking. Mm-hmm. Sean's is the wrestling. And both of them are two top prospects in the welterweight division. Especially with the big fight coming up between Leon Edwards and Colby Covington, we're going to start seeing a lot of shuffling pieces move up. So these prospects, they have to start getting into that conversation.
But how do you think Ian would do with the wrestling, though? Because if you got a striking wrestler, usually if the wrestler, or correct me if I'm wrong, but if the wrestler catches you, I mean, if a striker doesn't know how to defend that or how to deal with that, I mean, do you think Ian would be able to handle? Because if I seen Sean before, Sean looks really strong. You know what I'm saying? You're saying he's a gorilla. He's going to grab Ian and he's going to pound him on the floor. So how do you think Ian would do if Sean were to?
I think Ian has adequate takedown defense. I think if Sean does take him down, he's probably going to stay down because, like you said, Sean is strong. He's much bigger. Gary is the taller fighter, but Brady is the stockier fighter. Mm-hmm. And so once he takes him down, and the thing about Brady is that he's going to continue to shoot. The thing about Brady is that we would like to see him mix it up with striking because to Brady's credit, if he was to improve his striking, you're going to have fighters guessing. Is he going to knock me out or is he going to shoot for the takedown? Mm-hmm. So if he can mix in a little bit of that, then we can start. Sean Brady coming into the UFC, he was compared a lot to these other prospects like the Hamza Chimaevs, the Shavkat Rakhmanovs.
I think that was just you.
No, trust me when I tell you that he was in the conversations. That man, he was undefeated, but he tasted his first defeat. Yeah. He learned from it, fixed a lot of injuries that he's had over the last year and a half. So it's one of those things where Brady showed us a sign of life. Now he just has to keep taking those steps forward.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and then I believe after the fight after that was Rock Font, Davidson Figueiredo, and you're very familiar with him. With his fights with Brandon Moreno, the 4 fights that he had. Moved up to bantamweight, no longer flyweight. Looked really good in the weigh-ins. He didn't look too drained. But Rock Font's a dangerous fighter. That's one of the best jabs in the entire UFC. Figueiredo went in there, put on a really solid performance.
Yeah, and do you think it might have been the weight this whole time that these last couple fights went the way they did with Brandon?
I think it's weight. Figueiredo's a little long in the tooth now. He's 35 years old.
Yeah.
So he's got the best years ahead of him or behind him, and he still has a little bit to give in this division. Do I think he beats any of the top 5? I don't think so. He looked good though. The thing about Figueiredo though is that he's smart. Rob Font is a one-dimensional fighter. He's a stand-up fighter with good takedown defense. But his whole dynamic is based on boxing. Mm-hmm. That's how he beat Adrian Yanez. Mm-hmm. And Figueiredo knows, well, if I stand and trade with him, I'm probably going to get pieced up.
Yeah.
Mixed in the takedowns. Had Rob Font guessing the entire time. Pieced him up on the ground. Had him swelling in the eyes because he landed some precise, good blows. Ultimately ran away with the win because of his performance. Rob Font had some success on the feet, but when it came down to it on the ground, got pounded. Next fight on the card was Jalen Turner and Bobby Green. I had a lot of high hopes for this fight. Jalen Turner coming in as a replacement fighter for Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker got injured in camp. Jalen Turner, with a week and a half notice, came in, fought Bobby Green, took about in 1 round. It was pretty impressive for Jalen Turner, who needed that win.
Yeah.
But going into the fight, I thought it was going to be Bobby Green. Bobby Green looked good against Tony Ferguson.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, it is Tony Ferguson. The late, old Tony Ferguson. So you can't do a lot of comparisons there. It was expected. Or would you going to say it wasn't expected that Bobby Green was supposed to lose with Tony? I know you're biased about it still.
I think Bobby Green was looked at as a 50-50 fight. When I looked at Bobby Green, Jalen Turner, I saw more of a 60-40 fight. The thing about Jalen Turner, he's so tall. He has so much range to him. He's just he's almost like a middleweight fighting at lightweight, but he got the job done. I didn't expect it from him, but he looked really good. Where do I think that he goes from here? I think you would have to do. You could do a rematch with Turner and Dan Hooker. Mm-hmm. Really solid fight between the two. Very close fight.
Yeah.
I think you can also move up Jalen Turner to fight maybe Dariush. Judging that Dariush is coming off 2 losses, we'll get to that in a bit. As far as Bobby Green's future goes, I mean, he's a mainstay in the UFC. He's that guy that you fight to go into the top 15. He's fought at everybody in the division. I don't think he's washed. I think he continues going. I think Bobby Green's next logical fight would probably be to finish that fight with Dan Hooker. I mean, now on paper, stylistically, good fight. I could see that being possibly like.
But you would favor Dan Hooker?
Yeah, I would say Dan, because Dan Hooker, it's not that he's good or great at something. He's just good at kind of everything.
Yeah.
And it's really his chin and his will that makes fights interesting, because he'll just keep going.
Yeah, because I remember that kick that he ate from Turner.
Nasty.
Yeah, and he just kept coming, towards Turner. So obviously the fight was over.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens. And speaking of the lightweight division, though, that main event, Beneil Dariush coming off a loss against Charles Oliveira, first round. Arman Tsarukyan.
That was a nasty knockout.
It was. It was a nasty knockout. The thing about Tsarukyan is that we didn't. So going into the fight, in my opinion, Tsarukyan and Dariush, I thought it was going to be a chess match on the ground, because Tsarukyan is really good on the ground. I knew he had good strike, but he folded him.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that. I was excited for that fight because I see Tsarukyan as kind of a more dangerous striker, younger version of Dariush. So it was kind of a passing the torch moment. Tsarukyan already, he made it clear he's going for that title.
Yeah.
Who holds the title? Islam Makhachev. Those two already fought before. Tsarukyan actually gave a good performance against Islam. So a lot of people look at Islam very similar to how Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman was looked at going into the fight.
Yeah. You would favor one guy, but then Leon came and beat him back to back.
Yeah. So to fight Islam, the tools that Arman has, he's got the blueprint.
Okay.
Where do I think he goes from here? I think he fights a loser of Charles and Islam, or you can make him the backup fighter for that fight. I think he's maybe going to be also Gaethje to be the backup fighter, but I know Gaethje is still holding out for the winner of Islam and Charles too. But Tsarukyan's a dangerous fighter. People need to keep staying. He's put a stamp on that top 5.
Yeah.
Dariush, I think the last 2 fights showed he's just very chinny. But he lost to Charles Oliveira, and he lost to an up and coming Tsarukyan. I don't know where he goes from here exactly as far as the division goes. I mean, you could maybe make a fight between Dariush and Rafael Fiziev. Fiziev, I believe, is slated to come back in a couple of months, possibly by end of summer, early fall. You could, if Dariush wants to take some time, kind of get his mind back on track.
Yeah.
Because coming off 2 first-round losses like that.
Yeah, or you can always obviously get a little quick tune-up fight. Someone that most likely, he can beat. Any ideas of who they maybe could tune him up before?
I'm making a tune-up fight. This ain't boxing, baby. This is not
it's popular in boxing,
I think Dariush takes some time.
Yeah.
I think he takes some time, and
which is the same concept of the tune-up fight. I mean, whatever.
Rafael Fiziev and Dariush makes all the sense in the world, because Fiziev is coming off a fluky loss to Gamma. Gamma and Tsarukyan also makes sense to make, now that I think about it. But for Dariush is coming off a loss, 2 losses now in a row. Fiziev, 2 losses in a row now. It makes sense to make that fight. I think there's a lot of moving pieces in the lightweight division, and I think, judging by where things are going, a lot of these older fighters, some of them are hanging on, such as Justin Gaethje and Charles Oliveira. But we're starting to see kind of like the Beneil Dariushes,
the
Bobby Greens. Yeah. We're starting to see that wave kind of shift in the division. So it's interesting to see where it goes from here.
Okay, for sure. Well, the great news is we have another great fight week this week, so we should be able to talk about this a little later on, and we'll go ahead and recap whatever's coming up on Saturday, and we'll see how this next weekend goes.